Hey guys, my name is Beagle. Welcome to my studio. I am the composer and the orchestrator to the Liminal Project VR, which, if you haven't heard of before, is a VR immersive theater experience made entirely inside of an already existing game called RESUBSTANTIATION. This theatrical experience was crafted and created by Rowan Wood amongst a whole bunch of other creators, including myself. Rowan Wood asked me to join this project about a year and a half ago in the middle of a game jam when he first proposed it to me and showed me a work in progress trailer. And I figured, I'm just starting to get into orchestration, I'm just starting to get into composing, why not try my hand at it? Boy, was I in for a lot. What we'll be doing today is I will be going over my own composer notes over the song that I made for the very first cycle, Recursion. Now, this is completely impromptu. Nothing here has been scripted, so if there's a lot of cuts, forgive me, it'll happen. So let's get right into it. Now, originally Rowan Wood proposed to me a really, really cool idea, which was having this tree of sorts kind of sprout out from the ground, which we can see that tree, or somewhat of it, during the very first trailer. So he proposed that to me, showing me some of the other things, and when I said, I'm in, I started writing this. He gave me kind of the script and the story and the background of Liminal, which is amazing. If you haven't seen it, there is a new chapter coming out here in about a few weeks for an event in Berlin called Amaze, which is the final chapter. I highly recommend you go view that. It's beautiful, it is worth it. Anyhow, he told me that he wanted a epic scene that had like that tree sprouting from a pond. And I figured, why not? At the time, nothing was developed. Maybe a desert wasteland with a few things inside of it. If you've been to Liminal, you know what I'm talking about. There's a whole lot of nothing in Liminal. At least on the first chapter, there was a whole lot of nothing. Now there's a lot more. However, I didn't have much to go off of, so I thought, let's have it more of a distant theme, a distant sound. So I crafted this piano sound using a few reverbs. It sounds kind of alone. You're inside of a giant hallway with nothing there. That was my intention for that. Well, further down the line, this repeats. There's a few chords playing. We'll solo this out and I'll play you some of the chords here. The entire goal was to make it so it wasn't boring per se. And that's why there's just chords strewn throughout this entire thing. Should not have that moving. There's chords strewn throughout. Now, that's not the only part that plays. I also crafted a synthesizer using Serum with a few basic presets, which is a very soft, it's a pluck. Play it. It just is very simple. I muted it. Very simple. It has that static sound that fits it perfectly. And when it's added with a grandeur, or that's what the name of the piano is, when it's very soft and simple sound, and when it's added with the piano that I crafted, it creates this whole sound. It adds texture to it. So it's not boring, it's not alone anymore. Now, the intro, I will admit, is very long. More specifically, it is 3 minutes long. That was not intended. I just kind of went off the script with that. Now, later on, after I had made the rest of the bulk of the song, which you can see down here, I decided let's add a little bit more texture. So I added a little bit like an echo to the grandeur. We'll play that solo and we'll play the piano together. It's a small, tiny echo, but it adds so much together. You have to listen carefully for it. But it adds a lot together. That's the intro. It just kind of repeats over and over again with different chords, different structures. I mean, we have before the start of the first soloist, which is when we start to see hints of trees and hints of other things starting to grow from this mystical mirror pond that the Wanderer, Heil, looks into. My whole goal with this was to make it more and more intense as time went on, and I think I did so successfully. I mean, it had a huge turnout, turned out wonderful for everybody who was there. Now, I wanted to create and add in that lonely feeling once again. So, we already know that Heil is alone. There's nobody there. If you were there during the first chapters, you would know the only people there are the lost souls, the dreams, the visions of Heil. So, again, Heil is alone. There's nobody there to provide him comfort. And I wanted to emphasize that by adding this solo cello. It's a very lonely cello. Not much happening, you know, single. Just to lead in the rest of the orchestra, which plays out with another cello, which I like to do this weird type of thing, fighting cello, dueling cellos. I don't even know the name for it. I first learned it from James Newton Howard when he was doing, when I was studying his music a long time ago, which was creating another cello without vibrato, or a viola or a violin, depends on what sound you want to go for. But it's similar, but no vibrato, with maybe a fifth or a seventh down or up. It depends on what you want. But it creates this desolate tone, almost. You could hear it here. They're kind of like they're fighting for who should be the strongest and who should be in power. I love this sound. The resolve. And that's what I love doing. Now, while that is playing, we have the section for the cellos, for basses, and for violins, all playing another form of melody, which is kind of doubling, but also changing a little bit from the rest of the track. The violins doubling the cellos an octave up, giving it, you know, that extra sound. And basses just giving its own movement track to it. Then we have the violas that come in slowly and add more texture. Now it's differing. And then before we get to the rise, we will play all the parts together. And this is what it sounds like all together from that opening of the very first soloist. Keeping in tune with that kind of solo desolate feel that we know Heil is having to face right now. And as we add more instruments in, as I said earlier, we start to see signs of life. We start to see more things happening as this tree starts forming from thin air. If you watch the video on the channel that has the full song, you can actually see at this point in the background the tree starting to rotate, starting to form, starting to materialize right in front of our faces. Growing in intensity further and further as the viola joins us slowly. Kind of cut you off on a cliffhanger there. Now we get into the part where everything comes together. We are formed with a gigantic ensemble of many, many instruments, many, many strings, just kind of playing long sustained chords along with basses. This is what it sounds like. You know, chords, big, giant chords, because this tree just sprouted in front of your face. This giant, magnificent thing. Oh, I wanted to express it. I wanted to make it big. I wanted to make it large. Slowly peter out as that phase ends. Now, that's not the only thing that plays. If you've watched the full song, or if you've listened to the full song, you also know there's brass that plays. So what we have are more than three brass instruments. We have a horn, a trumpet, and an ensemble. Now, I chose these horns because they add in, you know, that regal, you know, giant. I added these horns in because it adds something regal. It adds something big. You know, a tree, again, massive tree just sprouted right in front of your face. Add in the trumpets to increase that. And then add the rest of the brass section doing the same sustains the strings are doing. I felt it needed just some brass. It just needed some oomph. Sounds good. Now, that's not the only part though. I added in this flute because I felt something else was needed. It needed a little bit of highs. So if we play everything together without the flute, I added some drums here, just kind of increased the effect and the sound a little bit, and it worked out. But with the loss of our violin, we don't have that high. It's kind of dull and it's stuck in the mids. So adding in that flute adds quite a bit of texture in the form of... You can't really hear it in the beginning, but it slowly gets louder and louder as the thing goes on. Now you can hear it. It's kind of doubling the trumpets. Adding its own sound in, which is amazing to me. And it worked out, it fit perfectly. That is it. That is everything for the track Recursion from Liminal. This was done just under about 10 months ago that the first scene was released. I highly recommend reserving tickets as soon as you can for the upcoming Amaze Festival, where we have another sequence for Liminal playing. So again, I highly, highly, highly recommend everybody try to get a ticket when you can, when there is tickets available, because this is something you don't want to miss. So guys, thank you. As always, I'm Beagle. You guys stay awesome, and I'll see you guys in the next video.